today's tutorial, I'm going to be showing you guys step by step how to make this really satisfying animation in Blender. Now this one here that you're looking at is loopable. I made this yesterday and I thought I might as well do a tutorial on it. So this here is the actual blend file that I made. You can see here, this is my original. Now I'm going to be showing you guys exactly how to make this, with the exception of some of these materials and the background plants. The overall idea here, I'm going to show you step by step how to make. The only differences with my original here is I just added in some background plants and I just made a little bit more, put a little bit more effort in with the materials. But I'm going to be showing you guys pretty much the exact same thing on how to make this sort of effect. We're going to have a canvas thing going on here where we have a so-called brush painting onto the canvas using dynamic paint, and that's going to give us this really cool effect. So if this is something you want to learn, keep watching, and as always, I'm going to be adding this blend file, my original one here, to the Patreon. So let's jump into it and have some fun. So let's jump inside of Blender, and what we're going to do, we're going to select all of the default objects and just press delete to get rid of them. And we're going to add in a cylinder. So we're going to go Shift A, we're going to go to our mesh options, let's add in a cylinder, and with the cylinder active, we're going to tab into edit mode. So inside of edit mode, with all of this active, what we're going to do is we're going to go RX90 and we're going to press enter. So in our front view, we should see it like this. We've rotated it 90 degrees on the X. We're then going to go SY and scale it on the Y, about this much. Then we're going to go Control R and add in a cut in the middle, a loop. So just left click twice and then press V to cut it and just move this bit to the side. Control L while all this is active and go X and delete verts. So now we just have this bit here and we're going to go and give this a mirror modifier, and let's enable the Y axis and let's enable clipping. So with clipping enabled, they shouldn't pull apart. So now we're going to just bring this maybe a little bit closer like so. And we're going to just model a very simple wheel here. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to our face select mode, select this face. We're going to go E to extrude, S to scale. Let's go in about this much. And this is purely just decoration. There's no functional purpose to this. We're going to go E to extrude, S to scale. Let's go about this much. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go E to extrude, S to scale one more time. And then we're going to deselect and go Shift, Alt, left click on this edge here to loop select these faces. E to extrude and extrude it in a little bit like so. And then select this face here and then go E to extrude and extrude all the way in till it clips here in the middle and go X and delete that face. Now we have this shape here. We're going to go to our edge select, Shift Alt, left click on this edge, this one in here, all of these ones that are a sharp corner in the inside and in the outside. Then go Control B to bevel, so Control B or Command B, and then roll your middle mouse button to add in some segments, tab back out, and then give this a subdivision surface modifier. Right click and go shade smooth. So now we have this wheel over here. Go to your front orthographic view and then go Shift A, go add in a cylinder, tab into edit mode, and let's select this top face and delete that face. And let's select this bottom face here and let's go S to scale it in. And let's select the whole thing by pressing A and then go S, Z and scale it down to Z. And then G, Z, move it down. We're still in edit mode, so we're going about here. So we have that origin point here at the top. And then we're just going to select this bottom face and we're going to go Control B to bevel. Let's just bevel it like this. So now we have a nice object here we can use. We're going to tab back out, right click and go shade smooth. And then in our front orthographic view, we're going to go S to scale that down. And then G, Z, move it down to here. And let's scale it up a little bit. So we want something that looks like this. Now we want to duplicate it all the way around. So let's enable our 3D cursor for the pivot transform. And we have our cursor here in the middle of our world. So now with this guy active, we can go Shift D to duplicate. And then we can go R45 and press enter. So we've duplicated and rotated 45 all in one shot. So now if we go Shift R, we can repeat that action. And we can do it till it completes around like this. And because it's 360 degrees around a circle, because we did 45, it's going to do this exact amount of times and it's all going to be even spacing, like so. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to select this loop here, the inside wheel. And let's just apply that mirror modifier and that subdiv. And then let's inverse the selection to select these other guys. holding and shift select the wheel again, and then go Control J and join this all as one object. Now we have this wheel. You can tab into edit mode. You can see this is what we have. It's looking pretty cool. So let's tab back out and let's go into our front orthographic view and just go G, Z, hold in Control and just snap it till it comes sitting on the floor here. So the bottom of this wheel, not the spike, but the bottom of the wheel is sitting here on our floor like that. Okay, so now we're gonna go Shift A and we go to Mesh Options, add in a plane. And with this plane, we're gonna tab into edit mode and let's just go S, X and go 12, like so. Just to scale it 12 times along the X. And let's go Control R and let's add in a loop here in the middle, and let's roll our middle mouse button to add in some more segments. And we want to make it about as many that'll give us some squares. Okay, so now you can see instead of this being a rectangle, it's made out of, roughly made out of these little squares here, like so. We're going to press A to select everything. We're going to right click and just go subdivide, and then we're going to come here and just increase the subdivision, and let's go to about 6, and then we're going to go to our top view, and we want to be efficient here, so we're just going to select these guys here. Okay, so we don't want to subdivide everything the same amount. So just these guys here, we're going to right click, subdivide, and then we're going to go right click, subdivide again, and then right click and subdivide again. We want a really fine kind of grid here. Tab back out, because remember we're having displacement here. And what we're going to do, we're going to, at this point, just make sure to save as we're going along. Always a good idea. And now we're going to animate this wheel. This is actually really easy. So let's go into a front orthographic view. And in our front view, let's move this little, drag this timeline up. We want to be in frame 1, and with this wheel active, we're going to press I, and we're going to insert a location and a rotation keyframe. We're then going to come exactly to frame 100, and I've already worked out the maths here, so this will work properly for us. And when you go N to bring up our properties panel, we're going to go to item, and over here, we're going to come and type in on the X a value of -7, like so. So it's moved -7 meters on the X. And we're going to come over here to the Y value, and we're going to go -360 and type enter. And then we're going to go I to insert a keyframe. And then hovering over this location, we're going to press I to insert a keyframe. And now you can see both of these location and rotation values have this yellow, which means there's a keyframe. So what's going to happen now between frame 1 and frame 100, it's going to rotate like this and stop right over here, which is perfect. Okay, and it shouldn't slide or drag. It should just be working really well. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue here. We're going to select this keyframe on frame 100, Shift D to duplicate it and drag it exactly to frame 110, just to give us a little bit of a pause where it stops. And then we're going to have it rolling back exactly the same amount, but in the opposite direction. So let's select this first keyframe, Shift D to duplicate, and let's drag that all the way to frame 190. I said 190, we actually want to drag this up to 210, okay? And the reason is because we want, obviously we have 100 frames in the first round, it pauses quickly, and then obviously we want 100 frames going back for things to match up, right? Otherwise it's not going to be the same. So we have this here, a little pause in the middle, and then over 100 frames it rolls back. So let's go to frame 1, hit the space bar, and let's see what it looks like. So here we have it rolling, it quickly stops, and there it goes back. And by default, we should have some nice Bezier curves on this. Let's just quickly go to the graph editor, and we can see by default, that's the interpolation, which is good. So let's go back to the timeline, but it should do that by default anyway. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna add in our dynamic paint. So let's select our paintbrush object here, which is what it's going to be called in this tutorial. And let's go over here to our physics properties. Let's give it dynamic paint, and let's make this a brush. All we have to do here is add brush, and that's all we have to do for this guy. But now we're going to go to the canvas. This is what's being painted on. We're also going to give this a dynamic paint. We're going to leave it as canvas this time and go add canvas. And the format here, make sure that's vertex. We're not working with sequences. And we're going to leave these values here because we are working with 1 to 250 frames. But the surface type, we want to make displace because we're working with displacement here. And we'll get to this dissolve in a little second, but we're also going to enable that in a while. But for now, we're just going to go over to our modifier properties. And now we're going to give this a displace. And we're going to click new. And now you can see this is what's happening. If we actually hit our, go to frame 1 and we hit the spacebar, look at what's happening here. Now it's way off, so what we have to do here is come to this mid-level and drag it all the way down to 0, and now that should be fine. So now you can see as it's going along here, it's leaving these indents here. This is right click and go shade smooth for that. And you kind of now see what's happening, so that's really cool. But the problem is here, if we go to frame 1 and we hit the spacebar, it's leaving these indents here, but we want them to shrink again. We want it to go back into place. That just makes it a little bit more satisfying. So that's where we're gonna go back to our physics. And with our canvas here active, we're gonna go down and enable dissolve. Come to the drop down here, and the time here just means the amount of frames it takes for these things to dissolve. So let's go with a value of 90, just to test. Let's go to frame 1, hit the spacebar. And now it means as these things get embedded over the period of 90 frames when they are made, they are going to go back to where they were. So let's just maybe go with something like 110 and try that out, because I don't want them to dissolve too quickly. So let's have a look at that. Okay, so there we have, that's looking a lot better. So let's go with 110 for now. And yeah, there we have it. That is our displacement. So now we're gonna go Shift A. Let's just add in a plane. Let's scale that way up like this. Tab into edit mode and then go Control R to add in a loop here. Left click twice and then go Control B just to bevel it. And make a bevel that's the same width as our track here, and then go X and delete that face. So now we just have some planes here on the side. Tab back out. Then we're gonna go Shift A. Let's just add in a cylinder. Let's take that cylinder and scale it way down, and then go SZ to scale it up on the Z, like so. Scale it down a bit more, and all we're gonna do here is we're gonna rotate this 90 degrees on the Y and then move it in, and that's just gonna fill the gap here. And this is just more of a decorative touch, but you guys can do it if you want to. I'm gonna scale it along the X a bit more, and then I'm gonna go Shift D and just move this one over to the side. So we have one over here, and I'm just gonna join the two together, and I'm gonna give them some smooth shading like so. So now we have these poles here on the side, and that just brings everything together a little bit more. Now for my original, and I'll quickly show you guys here. For my original, I just added in some plant assets that I had. You can add whatever you want here for a decorative touch. So that's why I'm not covering this. It's completely up to you what models you want to add in just to fill in your scene a little bit, but you guys get the idea here, okay? So that's just the context of this project. So I'm just gonna put this over to the side, and let's continue here by adding in our camera. So we're gonna come in about here, and we're gonna go Shift A, let's add in a camera. And with this camera active, we're gonna hit 0 on our number pad, and we're gonna zoom back out. And what we're gonna do in our camera view, we're gonna go to our camera settings, and let's make the focal length 90. I like a nice shallow field of view here, like this. It also makes it easier to hide the unnecessary background and just more focus on the subject here, which is this rolling wheel. And we're gonna rotate it like this slightly and just get a position that we like. Now for me, I'm gonna just kind of rotate the camera a little bit, and I want it to be positioned in a way that we see the track and the wheel over here like this, where it's starting. So the wheel's up here in the top corner here, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to come over here to frame 1, and I'm going to press I and insert a location and rotation for the camera. And then I'm going to take the same frame and I'm going to go Shift D to duplicate it and drag it all the way to 250. And the reason I do that is because we want it to start and end the same way, so it's loopable. So what we're gonna do between those two, we're gonna now enable auto keying, and as our wheel is moving, we're gonna come to about frame 40 in this case, and we're gonna move up, and the auto keying is gonna add in the keyframes, and we're just gonna drag for our animation, and we're gonna just go like this. Now, yes, you could add a curve. People always ask me, why don't you just add a curve or have the camera follow? Because I feel like having the camera stop, go is more like how somebody holding it by hand would look. And it's just fun to do anyway. I enjoy it. So if you want to add in an auto curve and make it follow automatically, go ahead. I just prefer to do it like this. So I'm just gonna drag through, and you can see it stops at about this point here. And then it pauses. So I'm going to have a little bit of a hold here, maybe like this. And then it's going to start rolling back. I'm going to move it along. bring it about here. So now you can see this is what we have. It's following along. It doesn't really matter how you animate your camera, as long as it ends and starts the same way, you should be fine. So now we can see here, that's what we have. I'm going to turn off auto keying. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go Control B and just drag over the camera to limit the render to the camera. Let's go over to our render settings. Let's make it cycles. I'm going to enable my GPU because I have one. And under the render amount, let's just make that 60, like so. Let's make sure to save. So now we're going to go Shift A. We're going to go add in a light. Let's add in an area light. Let's make the strength 140. And let's increase the size to 2. And I'm going to scale it along the X like so. And kind of bring it in a little bit more. And now let's go into a camera view and go Z and then go rendered. And this is what we have. So I might increase the strength to 300 in this case. And I might rotate it in a little bit and then duplicate it and have one coming in like this. So now we have it a little bit better lit. I'm also going to go to my world over here, properties, and let's just go where the color tab is. Let's make this a sky texture. And let's make the strength 0.05. And let's play around with the sun rotation. So I'm going to go with something like that. That looks good to me for now. And now we have a nice lit up scene. So let's go over to our shading workspace. And now I'm going to show you how we make these cool materials. So first of all, let's select our canvas here. And let's go to frame 1 by hitting Shift and the left arrow button. And that should take us to frame 1. And if we hit the space bar, it's going to play. And we just need to see these little indents here because that's going to matter with this material. Let's click New to give it a material. And what we're going to do is we're going to go Shift A, search. We're going to type in geometry. We're going to get a geometry node. Let's plug the pointiness into the base color. And let's go Z over here and then go rendered. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go Shift A, search, and get a color ramp. Place it over here. And let's drag these two values close together like so until we can see the border forming where the angles are here. So it's using the pointiness value here. Wherever there's a certain amount of bend on the face normals, it's creating this effect here. I don't really know how to explain it, but that's what the pointiness is really good for, like adding edge wear and stuff like that. But you can see that's what we have. And now we can use this as a mask to blend two different materials. So let's take this principled shader here. Let's make this one a nice pink. And I'm just going to disconnect these two nodes here. Let's duplicate this principled shader, bring it down, and let's make this one a bright green. And then we're going to go Shift A, search, and get a mix, and get a mix shader. And let's take these two. We're going to plug the top principled into the top socket, the bottom principled into the bottom socket of the mix shader. And let's take this material output and plug the shader into that surface. So now these two are getting mixed, but we want to tell it to use the color here from the color ramp here as a factor. So it's actually using this pointiness value. And what I accidentally did here is I changed the subsurf color instead of the base color. So let me quickly do that. And I did the same thing down here. That's really embarrassing. But now you can see that's working. So now it's blending these two together using the geometry pointiness. And at this point, you could make these shaders whatever you want. So for my original, and I'll quickly show you guys. For my original, what I did, I'll quickly go to the shading, is I did that exact same thing. The only difference is here, I added some roughness into it to make it look a little bit, to have some texture, a little bit of bump, a little bit of unevenness, which just made it look really good. But you guys can spend as much time as you want doing that sort of thing. But the overall idea here is the exact same thing that I did with my original. So that's going to make it look really cool. Now that we have that in place, we're just going to take all of this and just copy it. So we're going to go Control C and copy this. Then we're going to select our wheel and go New. We're going to delete these nodes and go Control V just to paste it. So it doesn't want to paste, so I'm just going to click Paste. So I'm going to go back. So I'm just going to select all of these, right click, and just once again copy. And hopefully this time it works. So I'm just going to right click and go Paste, and here we have it. And now on the wheel here, you can leave these colors looking the same. I think that looks really cool. The only difference is here, I'm going to come and change this to maybe like an orange, and then change this one here maybe to like a grayish kind of color. You can do whatever you want. You can swap these around. You can make it metallic. I think that's what I did for my original. So I'm gonna make both of these metallic, but you guys get the idea here. So now we have a nice looking material there. And at this point you can select this floor over here. You can give that its own material. I gave this a checkerwood material, which by the way, I just recently covered on my channel. So you can check that out. It's an easy, very easy procedural checkerboard material. So check out my channel, you'll see it on there. I just made it very recently. In fact, it should be the video before this video, and you can learn how to make that if you want to, or you can add any material that you want. So I'm just gonna go ahead and just give this just a basic material for now, just to demonstrate. Maybe make it a little bit darker. I might just give it a checker texture actually. Something like this, just increase the scale. You guys kind of get the idea here. This is more just about making this effect here. So once you're happy with it all, what you can do is you can go to back to your layout. I'm gonna select my camera. I'm just gonna go to my camera settings, enable the depth of field, click on the little eyedropper, and then select this cylinder. And then just bring this f-stop amount down, just so we have this nice soft focus on this instead of the background. And that's gonna make it look a lot cooler. We're also gonna go to our render and settings and just enable the motion blur. So we get some nice motion blur when this is rendering. And we also have to cache this out. So let's select the canvas again. Let's go over to our physics, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna go down to the cache, and we're just gonna click on bake, and we're just gonna bake this into our blend file, and then we're gonna save. So now it's baked in, and let's get a nice shot here. Let's go render, and let's render image, and let's just see what this looks like. And here we have it. So like I said, this is the exact same thing I did with my original. The only difference is here, I just did a little bit more with my materials, and I added in some nice background plants. But you guys can easily do that. The main idea here is just how to make this cool effect here. So I really hope you guys have enjoyed this tutorial. I'm gonna save this for now, and I'll just actually grab my original just so you guys can once again see it. Once again, the exact same thing I taught you guys today. All I did is I spent a little bit more time on the materials and added in some background assets. So this has been the tutorial. I will be uploading this original to my Patreon, so check that out in the description below. And I'll see you guys next time for another tutorial.